Trevor Story has been really scuffling for the Boston Red Sox on both sides of the ball lately. Is it time for them to ship him out?
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part, it's completely free. So you might as well continue to tune in because Locked On is your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. I'll be sure to tell you a little bit more about that later on this fine Friday, but the Red Sox did get swept in their last series, and we had to sit for a day and just think about the fact that they just did not play well. And what's frustrating about it is that it really wasn't as bad as it seems. Like, yes, they got swept. Obviously, you cannot get swept. That is incredibly unacceptable. Changes clearly need to happen, but they were competitive in 2 out of those 3 games and just could not execute at the end. And that's been a common problem with this Boston Red Sox team, is not being executing late in games for a variety of different reasons, primarily the reason being that the bullpen cannot get the job done in close games. The Red Sox losing a lot of close games speaks a lot more to the bullpen than it does to the offense. Yes, there are going to be days where the offense doesn't hit. The Red Sox are hitting primarily. It's just that the bullpen is not keeping up with that and not able to pull their end of the weight. And then it becomes a spiral effect of the Red Sox not being able to win these tight games late. And 2 of the 3 games against the Tigers were examples of that. And the Red Sox really need to figure that out soon if they want to be competitive. And on today's show, I'm going to be talking about a guy who's not a pitcher, but has been seriously struggling as of late for the Red Sox in Trevor Story. Also going to be talking about Connor Wong, as he has not been able to pull his weight behind the dish, especially, but also on offense. And also going to be answering the question, who's more to blame right now, Craig Breslow or Alex Cora? Now, if you think about Trevor's story and you look at his career as a whole, he has always been known to be one of the best overall players in the game, especially his defense, but also his offense when he was playing in Colorado was top notch. But the worry with him was that he was an offensive guy whose game was built on Coors Field in particular, where the Rockies play. And the worry was that if he goes elsewhere and his home games are not there, is he going to struggle elsewhere? And sure enough, in his time with the Boston Red Sox, he has been struggling, and it's been very tough to watch. And he started the 2025 season off hot at the plate. He was stringing together lots of home runs and hits and was just showing off his power. I mean, he has 6 home runs on the season right now, and the majority of those came in the early going of the season. Currently, he has 177 plate appearances with 167 at-bats. He scored 19 runs, recorded 39 hits to go along with those 6 homers that I mentioned, 8 stolen bases. His batting average is a 234, on base percentage is a 277, and his slugging percentage is a 353 with an OPS of 630. Now, what does that all mean, in case you are not sure that I just rattled off? His percentage of getting on base is a 277, slugging percentage 353, and OPS 630. So essentially what slugging is in baseball, essentially it means the total number of bases that a player records per at bat. So unlike on base percentage, which just measures how much you're getting on base, slugging percentage deals only with hits and does not include walks and hit by pitches in its equation. So Slugging percentage differs from batting average in that all hits are not valued equally. So, relative, a good slugging percentage typically is around 430, whereas 350 is a good on base percentage because, again, on base percentage means that you can get on base with a walk and it counts towards that. Slugging solely measures your hits. How effective are those at bats and are you hitting? And when you are hitting, what type of hit is it? So it essentially takes the total bases divided by the at bats to calculate it. So obviously, I'm not a huge math person, so I can't always do that math quickly in my head, but the total number of bases. So if you record 3 total bases in your at bat one day and then you took 3 at bats total, then you would divide those 3 total bases by those 3 at bats to get your number. So essentially, around 430 is what's considered good when it comes to a slugging percentage. Right now, Trevor Story is at a 353. So he is below average when it comes to that. Now, when I mentioned OPS, his right now is at a 630 for the season. It's one of the most commonly used metrics for evaluating a player's overall hitting abilities. Calculating OPS is pretty straightforward. You basically take the sum of a player's on base percentage plus their slugging percentage and then divide that by 2 to get their OPS. So if you look at the on base percentage, which for Trevor Story right now is a 277, and you take his slugging percentage, which is a 353, you add those together and then you divide that by 2, and that would get your OPS, which basically stands for on base plus slugging. So quite literally combining those two. Surpassing an OPS of 800 is a distinction of an above average hitter. A player who consistently achieves an OPS of over 900 is often among the league leaders and is perceived as an excellent hitter. So above average is 800 for reference. Trevor Story is at just a 630. And the reason is because he is not getting on base a lot anymore because he's not putting together competitive at bats. And that has been a huge concern when it comes to what he is not doing very well. His average exit velocity very weak in the 39th percentile. Now, 39th percentile is considered poor, but the higher end of poor. He's not hitting the ball very hard in terms of when it's being made with contact. So if he is making contact on that ball, the rate at which that ball is traveling is not very fast, which is a result of the location of where the ball is hitting the bat on top of how hard it's being hit. His strikeout percentage is very bad. He's just in the 6th percentile for that and in the 8th percentile for walk percentage. Lots of swings and misses for him. His chase percentage also is very bad. He's in the 9th percentile for that. The biggest problem with Story is that he is notorious for swinging at balls down and away, heading towards the dirt. He does not know how to hold up on that type of pitch a lot. And in a key situation in which the Red Sox really need him to come through offensively, he hasn't exactly been doing his job in that manner. When the bases are loaded, maybe, for example, and the Red Sox have 2 outs and Trevor Story's up, it's hard to have faith that he's going to come through because he is just not putting together those productive at-bats. In chase percentage, that means he's swinging at a lot of pitches outside the zone, and that does not make for a very successful hitter, and he just is not taking walks. Another notable asset of Trevor Story's game is his defense. That's always been something that he has been known for, but he's been struggling defensively in 2025. So outs above average is in just the 8th percentile. So outs above average basically means that if you take Trevor Story and then you compare him to other players who play his position, you are not stacking him up very well. It's a range-based metric of skill that shows how many outs a player has saved. So other players are obviously saving a lot more outs than he is because he's only in the 8th percentile for that. And the answer, how many outs has he saved? It's at -3. So it's a very low number. What does this say? That in terms of his defense, he's not making a lot of very strong plays to save outs. And instead, he is messing up a lot of plays over there at shortstop. And his arm strength is average in the 48th percentile. But it really is that range, that outs above average, where he is not consistently saving outs for the Red Sox, and rather he's hurting them defensively. So because of all of this, what exactly does this mean for Trevor Story? He is not showing any sort of positive trajectory right now. And again, he started off strong offensively. He really has been struggling defensively all season. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But the offense early on gave us hope. But now he's struggling again offensively. So it might be time for the Red Sox to start considering a trade. The problem with that is it's a lot easier said than done to just trade Trevor Story. Because why? He was batting .337 with an .894 OPS for the first 23 games of the season. Not only was the 32-year-old finally living up to that expensive price tag that the Red Sox gave him, but he was also just playing the most efficient baseball of his career at that point, and it really felt like he was trying to bounce back well after having been hurt a good amount in his time in Boston. His resurgence at the plate turned out to be short-lived, though, because he had struggled to a historic degree ever since then. Over his past 19 games, he has hit 115 with 1 home run, 4 RBIs, and a .332 OPS. I mean, talk about a digression. He is the 4th Red Sox player in the wild card era to hit 115 or lower over a 19-game span, minimum 80 plate appearances. John Valentin did so in 1997, while Julio Lugo and Daniel Nava joined the club in 2007 and 2012, respectively. So obviously not great. He has been pitiful at the plate. The good news for the Red Sox, if you want to try to think positively, the last time that they had a shortstop that was struggling this much offensively, they went on to win the World Series because Lugo played in all 14 games during Boston's 2007 postseason run, batting .271 that October. Should Trevor Story fail to bounce back, the Red Sox do have Marcelo Mayer waiting in the wings in AAA, but the Red Sox still owe $77.5 million to Story, which will make it tough to just send him down to AAA or outright bench him, because that's hard to justify. You're spending this much money on the guy and you're just going to say, oh, you're no longer useful, so we're going to send you down. It's a lot easier said than done to just do that. He's appeared in 204 games since joining the Red Sox in 2022. He has hit .232 with a .680 OPS and a 4.4 WAR in that span, posting positive defensive runs saved each season prior to this year. During his time with the Rockies, he hit .272 with an .863 OPS and 27 WAR, making 2 All-Star appearances and winning 2 Silver Sluggers. So obviously with the Rockies, he was a superstar. Has not exactly been the case this season with the Boston Red Sox. And what does this mean and what does it come down to? It means that they might have to figure something out, and that something might mean either deciding they're just going to eat the money for Story and just keep him on the bench and then give Mayer a chance, or they try to find a trade partner. But if they find a trade partner, they would probably have to be willing to eat a lot of the salary anyway. So they're kind of backed into a wall right now, but either way, they have to figure out something because they can't keep riding the wave with him continuing to struggle the way that he is. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about another player who has been struggling for the Red Sox, and that is Connor Wong. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? I know that I have. I've done this so many times. Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes all of that possible. what I love about Game Time is that it makes buying tickets really fast and simple because prices on their app actually drop closer you get to game time, and they have really good last minute deals, plus clear seat views because they show you what the view from your seat would look like before you purchase the ticket so that you know you're not buying a bad seat, especially at a place like Fenway where your view could be obstructed by those poles. Just to be real, I've seen Game Time as such a lifesaver for me because of that. So when you are trying to buy tickets, you can make sure that you're getting the best experience. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You are going to never look back once you start using Game Time. I was in that boat and I buy it for every single event I go to now. I use them. So make sure that you jump on that. It might be time for the Red Sox to think about something new for Trevor Story, but it also might be time for them to think about shipping out catcher Connor Wong, who has been very frustrating himself this season for the Boston Red Sox. Now, obviously, he was dealing with that hand injury when he got nailed by a baseball, and it was all swelling up and bruising, and that was tough to see in game like that. So he had to be taken out of the game, and then he ended up having to go on the IL and rehab, and now he's back with the Red Sox. So partially you could allude to the injury, but that really is a tiny part of the struggles that Connor Wong has been facing, especially defensively. He's not a good defensive catcher. And even in the series finale against the Tigers on Wednesday night, when Aroldis Chapman gave up a walk early on in the 9th inning, and then the runner got to third. And my heart was pounding because Connor Wong was behind the plate, and I didn't trust that he was going to be able to stop that. And I thought they were going to end up walking off on a passed ball. I'm serious. I mean, they ended up walking off the game anyway on a single, so it didn't matter. But I was so nervous. And in my head, I said, if we lose this game because Connor Wong can't make a stop behind the plate, I am going to be very angry. His defensive numbers have been tough. I mean, he is by some of the metrics above average, but the problem is the execution and the scenarios at which they are happening. In blocks above average, he's in the 51st percentile. So he actually is blocking more than half the balls that come to him. And his framing is in the 84th percentile. So that's actually a good metric for him. It means that he's angling himself really well so that if he catches a ball, he can try to pull it and make it look like a strike, even if it's not. And he is doing well in that regard generally. But the problem is that he's not doing as well as Carlos Narvaez is really in any aspect of the game. Narvaez is really emerging as the starting catcher, the number one. He's really emerging as that guy. He is somebody who has been contributing heavily defensively, but he also has brought a lot to the plate as well. And you want somebody who can do both effectively. And when the Red Sox brought in Narvaez, he was a guy who wasn't exactly known for his bat. He was known to have good defense, and he was always a very solid defensive catcher, showing off his arm strength during spring training when he was able to throw guys out that were attempting to steal second base. And he was good behind the dish in terms of making nice stops. But offensively, he didn't have the best numbers, but now he is contributing for the Red Sox pretty frequently offensively, and he comes through in big moments a lot, and you can't exactly say the same for Connor Wong. He hasn't been playing in a lot of games this season, but he's currently batting 146 with a 239 on base percentage, 146 slugging, and just a 385 OPS. So if you remember what I talked about in the previous segment about what's considered good for those numbers, he is way below average at the plate. 46 plate appearances with 41 at-bats. He scored 3 runs and 6 hits and 0 home runs with 1 stolen base. So he obviously is not a power hitter. We've always known that about him. No home runs yet and just 6 hits to go along with the rest of his stat line. Obviously, a small sample size because of the fact that he did miss some games with that injury, but that's not really an excuse because overall in general, he hasn't been an insanely good hitter. 2023, he hit 235 with a 288 on base percentage, 385 slugging, and 673 OPS. And then the next season, last year, he was better, 280 average with a 333 on base percentage compared to 288 the season prior, and a 425 slugging compared to 385 the season prior, 758 OPS compared to 673 the season prior. And from a batting average standpoint, 235 in 2023, 280 in 2024. So by comparison, when you look at those numbers, he took a leap in 2024, but a lot of that had to do with his first half of the season. The first half of the season last year, Connor started off very hot at the plate. He was executing, he was making good swing decisions, and he was putting together some productive at-bats. But then the second half of the season came along, and he kind of fell back down to earth a little bit, and he wasn't hitting at as consistent of a rate as he was in the first half. And I was like, yes, that sounds about right. So that's the biggest thing too here is that it looks like he hit a lot better in 2024 compared to 2023. But the second half of the season for him, things started to decline. And now this year, we're seeing the version of Connor Wong that we saw in the second half of last year. And I remember talking about it on the show. I said, it's a question mark with Connor Wong. What version of him are we going to get heading into 2025? Because he was so hit or miss prior to that, and last year he was starting to decline in the second half. Are we going to get first half or second half Wong? Sure enough, we've gotten second half Wong so far, which has been pretty tough to watch. So he's also not a base stealer. He doesn't have a lot of speed, only 1 stolen base on the season. And when it comes to his hits and the spray chart in terms of where his hits are landing, he only has 1 single that he has hit to a deep part of the field. All of them otherwise have been either infield hits or barely touching the outfield because he doesn't hit for a crazy amount of power. So that's the biggest thing is even last year when he was healthy for most of the season, just 13 home runs. Season before, just 9 home runs. So he's never going to be a guy who's going to consistently hit for power. But the problem is he doesn't really have the speed. So because he's not hitting the ball super far, even when he's hitting a single, he can't stretch it into a double like a guy like Jarren Duran can because of his lack of speed in that regard. Now, I'm not saying Carlos Narvaez has the speed either, but I'm saying like there aren't a lot of positive aspects of Wong's game that he brings at this point that we aren't already getting from Narvaez. So when the Red Sox are trying to evaluate what they can do to help improve the roster, I'm looking at Connor Wong and I'm saying, all right, look, we need to do something about the catching situation. And we have these 2 catchers in Carlos Narvaez and Connor Wong. Which one of them is producing more consistently right now? The answer to that would be Narvaez. So that being said, what do? Do we keep Connor Wong as the backup catcher, or do we try to trade him and acquire a defense first backup catcher to play behind Narvaez? Because I think it's becoming pretty clear now that Narvaez has the stuff to be that number 1 catcher. Nobody thought that going into the season. It seemed like the Red Sox really valued Wong and his ability level, and that was something I worried about because by trading away Kyle Teal to get Crochet, obviously something that needed to happen was trading prospects of that caliber, not complaining about that trade itself. What I was a little bit disappointed about was that they weren't as aggressive when it came to pursuing the catching market or trying to acquire a more reliable catcher to pair in that situation. But obviously they saw something in Narvaez that a lot of people didn't see. And now he's panning out to be that reliable, true number 1 catcher. And now you have Wong, who it is going to sound a little bit mean, but kind of feels like dead weight on the roster because he's not hitting well. He's not playing good defense. He can't steal bases a lot. So his speed isn't going to be on display. He's not a power hitter. So what is he really bringing to the table that we can't upgrade with somebody else? The Red Sox weren't afraid to upgrade the catcher spot in the middle of the season last year because they let Reese McGuire go and acquired Danny Jansen, feeling like he would be an upgrade. Now the Red Sox need to consider doing the same thing, because if they want to be a playoff team, they can't mess around and keep rolling out those guys on the roster who are not doing anything well to contribute. And when you look at the lineup, Connor Wong is somebody who just hasn't really been as valuable as I think the Red Sox were hoping for or would have liked to see. So now it gets to the point where it's like, okay, what can we do to improve that situation? And if I'm the Red Sox, I'm going to see who might be available on the catching market. Now, keep in mind that if the Red Sox do trade Wong, they're probably going to have to couple another talented player in there, but they could do that and get pitching in return if that's what they feel that they need. And if they get pitching, but they don't acquire a catcher in return, they could look at catchers who are on another team's team in the minor league system, or they could look at the opportunities of other catchers that might be let go from the teams they're currently on and play defense well, because if they're just used as a backup, they don't need to be the best catcher in the league. So there are options, but I think it's about time now to think about moving on from Wong, because he just hasn't been doing what he needs to do offensively or defensively. I know it's only May still, but I mean, this team is already in hot water when it comes to their consistency. So why not set them up for even more success? And coming up, who's more to blame for the lack of moves to try to make the team better? Is it Breslow or Cora? Going to be discussing that. If you're looking to make lots of money by betting on sports, you've come to the right place with FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. My husband actually uses FanDuel every day. It's funny because he sits at the kitchen table. I'm not kidding with any of this, by the way. Sits at the kitchen table every morning and places his bets for the day. He has a spreadsheet where he sees every game for that day, primarily for basketball because it's his favorite sport to bet on. But he also will do it for baseball sometimes too, even though baseball is a harder sport to bet on. And he goes into FanDuel and he makes his bets for that day. And he has come out on positive a lot more. He doesn't lose a lot of money because he just is strategic with what he bets on, but FanDuel also helps him to bet on what makes sense. So I firsthand have seen him make lots of money. So that could also be you. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, when you're rich because of this, you can thank me later. I promise, it's so worth it. The Red Sox continue to struggle as they got swept by the Detroit Tigers this week. Completely unideal, obviously. And now they are in a situation where they have to start winning more consistently. And the biggest problem that I have is that they not only aren't winning consistently, but they are better than this. Their talent is certainly there. They are just not executing. And who's more to blame for all of that? Is it Craig Breslow for not putting the best possible roster that he can on the field right now and utilizing the resources available to him? Or is it Alex Cora for the in-game management decisions that he makes? Because it feels like, to an extent, both of those things are taking place. Maybe Alex Cora not necessarily utilizing all of the talent he has in the best way he could be. But on the flip side of that, he has the roster that he has available to him, and Craig Breslow and company need to make the roster moves in terms of selecting somebody from AAA or acquiring somebody from another team, or, picking up a player that was DFA'd. That's all front office work. So truly, which one of them is more to blame? Now, it's easy to say, well, Alex Cora is the one who keeps messing up in game situations. Okay, but at the same time, he's not the one out there playing. You can look at a guy like Aroldis Chapman, for example, or Justin Slayton, guys who the Red Sox like using in high leverage. If one of them is not available that day, Alex Cora doesn't have a choice. You can't just use a guy when they aren't available. And if he brings in somebody and they don't pitch well, what was he supposed to do? He has the group of players that are accessible to him. And the guy who's in charge of altering roster stuff is Craig Breslow. And Breslow doesn't seem to want to change up anything, at least from the outside perspective. It seems like he's completely fine with continuing to roll out the roster that they have every single day, and it's just not working to the extent that it needs to work. Now, part of this is on Alex Cora, why he continues to want to get David Hamilton in the lineup consistently, even though he is pretty abysmal at the plate overall. I don't understand. It is a matchup thing primarily. He did hit a home run the other night, and he does have the speed to put pressure on opposing pitchers when he's on the base paths. So there is some upside to David Hamilton, but there are days where I just don't think he should be in the lineup. And the problem, though, becomes until Craig Breslow in the front office want to make some kind of changes, this is how it's going to be. And a lot of people are saying, well, why don't they just call up Marcelo Mayer or Roman Anthony? So the reason for that, basically, the financial incentive to call up top prospects makes it so that teams hold back on calling up their top prospects. It's called the prospect promotion incentive, which basically promises to persuade clubs to promote their young players faster. On paper, the financial incentive seems simple and straightforward. Basically, you promote your players faster, you can be rewarded, thus decreasing the incentive to manipulate service time. But that's not what actually is taking place here. Instead, the financial motivation has been turned on its head by real world events and the perverse incentive. So what happens when you have three top prospects like Roman Anthony, Marcelo Mayer, and Christian Campbell all ready to arrive in the major leagues at about the same time while showing different levels of interest in taking a long-term team-friendly deal? That's where things get complicated. So basically what happens is MLB players need to accumulate 6 years of major league service time before hitting free agency. To accumulate a full year of service time in one calendar year, players need to spend at least 172 days of the regular season on the major league roster. Under the old rules, clubs were incentivized to leave top prospects in the minors to start the season for a couple of weeks out of spring training to prevent them from reaching the 172-day threshold, which essentially gave the club an extra year of control. So at the end of what should be year 6, the player ends up with 5 years and 171 days of service time, and they can't hit free agency yet. So it kind of is a way to manipulate the system. But under these new rules that the Major League Baseball group updated, under these new rules, teams can earn additional draft picks, high picks immediately after the first round by giving elite prospects a full year of service time. Players with little or no MLB service, so basically just rookies, who appear on 2 or 3 of the top 100 prospect rankings, MLB Pipeline, Baseball America, ESPN, etc., are eligible for this. So any PPI eligible player, PPI is what the new rules are called. Any player who's eligible for that, who finishes first or second in Rookie of the Year voting, is awarded a full year of service time, regardless of when he actually debuted. So for Red Sox purposes, Christian Campbell represents the opportunity for a draft pick described in this whole segment that I'm talking about. And Roman Anthony and Marcelo Mayer represent the concern of a lost year of controlled service time for the club, because basically, in other words, it greatly behooves the Red Sox front office to ensure that Christian Campbell finishes ahead of both Roman Anthony and Marcelo Mayer in the Rookie of the Year voting, because of the fact that there's that extra incentive for the draft pick. If Campbell wins Rookie of the Year, the Red Sox get a very valuable extra draft pick in 2026 between the first and second round. And as long as Anthony or Mayer don't finish second, they also get an extra year of control over both of them in 2031. when Anthony will be in his age 27 season and Mayer will be in his age 28 season. But if either Mayer or Anthony pass Campbell in the race for Rookie of the Year, they not only lose the potential bonus draft pick, but they also risk losing a prime season of Anthony and or Mayer in 2031. So right now, the PPI, which again stands for Prospect Promotion Initiative, is actually incentivizing even more service time manipulation because of the fact that the Red Sox need to make sure that Christian Campbell is in the best position to win Rookie of the Year, so they get that extra draft pick. It really is confusing and it's crazy, but that's essentially why the Red Sox haven't called those guys up yet, is because they see more of a benefit longer term to keeping them in the minors for right now. But the Red Sox need to start playing better in order to make it justified for them to keep doing that. So hopefully they do. But I appreciate you tuning into Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen today. Be sure to also check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. They really keep you informed on everything going on with all the games from that night. So make sure you check that out next on any podcast platform. Like I always say, keep the faith. At least try your best, please. Go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.